Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation as part of the Industry Insight webinar series. The topic this time is top mistakes attorneys make and how to fix them. Speaking today will be Myrna Johns from Tabs 3. Myrna has been with Tabs 3 software for more than 21 years and is the primary trainer and resident expert in Tabs 3 and Practice Master. She has held more than 700 training sessions on Tabs 3 and Practice Master topics and is really passionate about helping lawyers get the most out of their software. The Industry Insight webinar series is hosted by the ABA Legal Technology Resource Center. To stay updated on upcoming webinars or view previous videos, visit ambar.org/industryinsight. You can also stay updated on legal technology news through our blog, lawtechnologytoday.org. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll now begin the webinar.
All right, thank you for that introduction, Rose. I have found that the attorneys that I meet on a day-to-day basis are intelligent, hardworking, and often generous individuals who put a lot of effort into avoiding mistakes in their law practice. Let's face it, no one wants to face a malpractice lawsuit. But malpractice mistakes are not the only mistakes to avoid. Today, we're going to cover 4 billing mistakes that attorneys make and how you can avoid making these mistakes, starting with the first part of the billing cycle and moving through to the end. The first mistake we're going to discuss is inaccurate timekeeping. When you guess how much time you spend on a task or which cases you were working on, you are more likely to make a mistake when entering your time. Inaccurate timekeeping can lead to missing time. Even when you have the best practices in place, the best of us will miss some time here or there, and I'm going to show you how you can search for and find that missing time. The situation I hear about most, which is caused by the previous 2 mistakes, is tardy invoicing. Getting those bills out the door is the key to getting that money back where it belongs, in your pocket. And then the final mistake we're going to discuss is avoiding accounts receivables. Very few people actually like to call a client about a delinquent account, and we're going to cover a few ways to help make managing your accounts receivables just a little bit easier. As I just mentioned, inaccurate timekeeping is one of the mistakes attorneys make. Some attorneys wait until the end of the day, week, or month to enter their time and have to guess about the time that they enter. I've even run into more than one attorney who bills their time when they start to run out of money. Their staff is very frustrated about that, and it's not an effective way to run your business. So what about some ways that you can avoid making this mistake? A great way to avoid inaccurate time entry is to enter your time as you work. Think back to what you were doing Monday at this time. Perhaps you were on the phone. If you were speaking to someone you like, such as your mother, a friend, or one of your favorite clients, you're more likely to underestimate the time that it took on that call. If you spent time speaking to someone annoying, such as an angry client or obnoxious salesperson, it may have seemed to take longer. In many instances, attorneys will undercut their own estimates in an attempt to avoid overcharging their clients. Entering the time as you work makes you more confident that your time is accurate. It also reduces the missed time, and most attorneys find that their billable hours increase when that time is entered. In fact, an article in Civil Practice University reminded me that research shows just waiting until the end of the day, not end of the week, month, or year, but just the end of the day, can cause attorneys to miss 10 to 15% of their billable time. So if you're billing only 4 hours a day, 10% can add up to 4/10 of an hour each day, and that can equal 100 hours a year. At a measly $100 an hour, which is lower than the average billable hourly rate, that adds up to $10,000 that you could be billing each year for each attorney. So what are some ways that we can accurately track our time? One way to be more accurate, use timers. In Tabs 3 billing software, we have the ability to track each fee with a timer. Simply click on the green arrow and the timer starts. When using the timer, we can also see the time increase and view the value of the transaction as the work is being done. Think about that client who's concerned about the cost of their case. When the value of your time is on the screen, if they ask you to take on a time-consuming task that really isn't necessary to their case, you can remind them just how much this call is costing them and how much it's really going to cost to do that task, let alone fighting for that ugly picture that they hate just to spite their spouse because their spouse loves it. In Practice Master, we have another way to view timers. Many of my clients like to see all of their tasks going on and track each of the projects that they're working on. Starting the timer on one item will stop the timer on a previous item. Additionally, I like this because I can see the description of the work I'm doing, so when I get off the phone that interrupted the project I was working on, I can get back to what I was working on because I can see which time record is listed there. I can easily find between those time records what's out there. Even if your firm uses alternative fees, you can use the timer function as a way to keep track of the work that you do as you're doing it. Since this information is recorded to the client's file, you and others in the firm can see what work has been done on that case. Additionally, this information will be beneficial in the event that you need to try to collect fees through the court at the end of the case. You can also find other third-party products that will work with tabs 3 to help you track how much time you spent on individual tasks. Another way to make timekeeping accurate is to use the tools that you have available. There are many tools available today to make your data entry easier and more efficient. One of these is what we like to call a macro. Like pressing a button, a macro will perform an additional step after you press it. For example, in tab 3, you can type an abbreviation and have it expand to the words based on the macro you create. This can do two things. It makes the transaction faster to enter because you have less to type. It also helps your firm to have consistent descriptions throughout the firm, which makes it easier for staff to answer questions about bills and makes it easier for your clients to understand what they receive. For example, here you see a fee entry in tab 3. You can see the letters TDS highlighted in blue. When I press enter, the description will automatically change letters TDS to the words to discuss current status and issues relating to the case. Now, obviously, that may not be something that you use terminology-wise. You can customize everything to meet your own needs. While we have this feature automatically built into tabs 3 and Practice Master, you can also find third-party applications and programs that can be used to do the same thing on your computer. Another tool that can be used to help get your time in fast and ensure that you keep accurate time is the Convert to Fee feature available in Practice Master. You already have to type the document and save it, or type a calendar entry so that you know what's on your schedule. Using simple Convert to Fee features means you reuse the work that you've already done and don't have to take time to retype your notes just because you're entering a fee. For example, firms who use Practice Master can simply click the Convert to Fee button you see here in the Matter Manager to take the work that was completed and convert it to a fee with a single click. Since everything you do for the case is in Matter Manager, this also helps you identify any unconverted entries based on the missing timer. So what about when you're working with other software products outside of tabs 3 and Practice Master? In Practice Master, we have the ability to create records and convert items to fees from many popular products. For example, if I prepare a motion in Microsoft Word, we can bill for that motion with just a single click. Or when we send an email, we can bill for that with a single click. And of course, calendar records in Practice Master can be converted quickly to fees as well. You already had to enter that information on the calendar so you don't miss your meeting. Why not take that work and turn it into a fee? Of course, there's times when you're not in the office. Being out of the office does not mean that you're not working. Maybe you're at court, meeting with a client, or doing something else out of the office, and you need to be entering that time in as you're performing the work in order to get that benefit of that time entry. A tabs 3 Platinum user can simply open up tabs 3 Connect and enter a fee while at the courthouse, before pulling out from the parking lot from that meeting at the client's office. By doing that data entry when that memory is fresh, you accurately reflect exactly what occurred. You even know if you spent the last 10, 15, 20 minutes simply talking about the latest Husker basketball game or football or some other event that's going on in the city instead of working with your client. Your client shouldn't be billed for that. And this is a great way to just remember that while it's still fresh. Additionally, if you, like me, are slow when typing your tablet or your phone, you can use the Google Voice or whatever talk-to-text feature you have and speak your description. I found that my Galaxy S4 very accurately reflects exactly what I want to say, even when I use complex words, as long as I remember to enunciate them properly. The next mistake that I see attorneys making is not finding all of the missing time. Even with the best timekeeping practices, there are going to be times that you may slip up and miss some of the time entries that should have been made. When you review pre-bills or pro formas or whatever it is you're reviewing, you may be looking for missing work on a case-by-case basis. But how about the work that you do each day? Good software like Tabs 3 will have features to help you find missing time. The Recap of Hours report in Tabs 3 is one of my favorites. If you look closely, you can see that some of the days have hours shaded. These are days with less than a number of hours that we can specify, and in this case I chose 6 hours just so that some of these would show up. And when I hover over some of these times, you'll notice that they're highlighted in yellow. And I can drill down on them just by simply clicking. I can see what I was doing on that day and determine if I worked on more items. I might remember that I had a call come in while I was writing a letter to Mr. Williams and add that as a new entry. Or I might remember that I left Mr. Phillips' office and went directly to a CLE session in the hotel that was next to his office, which is why I scheduled that meeting at his office instead of in mine. Another feature that we have in Practice Master is a visual timer display that allows you to see the gaps that are in your timer records, and then you will know where you might be missing time on that particular day. Perhaps here you can see this big chunk of time in the middle. The attorney might have had a long business lunch and they were rainmaking to get more clients. Or perhaps the attorney was attending an online class like the one you're attending today. While it's not noted here, you can also enter timers and track time spent on non-billable tasks so that you know that you're not missing time because you were working on something, you're simply not able to bill for that. And that is actually a great way to help make sure that you're getting the billable time in, is to also track that non-billable time as well. Once you know for sure that you're missing time, you can look at your calendar to see what you were doing on a specific day, look in your client's files to see if there was time that was not billed, or even check your emails. For example, here in the Practice Master Matter Manager, I can see easily which entries have not yet been converted, and then easily convert them to a fee using the features that we discussed earlier. Another option may be to use third-party applications like Chrometa or iTimekeep to track how you spend the time on your computer. Those applications work by keeping track of everything you work on, whether it's work-related or not, and you simply then take those items, take a look at them, and see what needs to be combined or converted into an actual fee for your client. As I mentioned before, probably the top mistake that I hear about each month, maybe not the top mistake that's made, but the one I hear about frequently, is tardy invoicing. In many firms, it's just 1 or 2 attorneys that don't have their time in at the end of the month. Now, that attorney is wasting time by trying to quickly review what they did for the last month and entering their time by memory, and the other attorneys who did their job and got their time in on time are waiting to get their bills out because this one attorney doesn't have theirs done. As it has been pointed out, they are probably also undercutting the work that they actually did because they didn't enter that time in the first place. Additionally, they're likely missing the whole client interactions that may have happened on just a little individual client because they were short and pleasant, they happened so long ago, it's weeks later, and you kind of forget that you did that work. Pro bono work is great, but you should know when you're performing pro bono work and keep track of that accordingly. Sometimes the rest of that staff is ready to get that bill out the door and the previous one isn't yet completed. That can cause problems when reviewing drafts or looking at reports. Just last week, I talked to an attorney at a firm where 2 of the attorneys at that firm were frustrated. One of them is of counsel, and he is frustrated. He only gets paid when his clients pay because he doesn't really do a lot of regular stuff. And so when his clients don't get their bills, he doesn't get paid. And their time hadn't been billed because one partner didn't have his time entered. Additionally, clients can become confused when they get bills that are only a couple of weeks apart. So you go 6 weeks, then you get a bill, and then you go another 2 weeks and you get another bill. Very confusing. Or you'll get a bill 1 month with 1 month's time, and then a couple months later you'll get a bill with 2 months' time if it's not really regular. It's very hard for clients to plan for and schedule that payment. And oftentimes that will mean that your bill gets put down at the bottom of the stack. I'm sure many of you have heard of attorney Jay Foonberg, who's the author of How to Start and Build a Law Practice. One of the features I liked best from his book is called the Client's Curve of Gratitude. He researched why clients are often reluctant to pay their bills, and he found that the further you get from the time the work was completed, the more the client forgets the effort involved in that case. Sometimes clients even think they could have done the work themselves better or for less money. This is especially true when the case is not a clear winner. Maybe you saved them a lot of money by settling, but they still had to pay some money out to their opposing party, and then they also had to pay you. And they look at the bill, and they determine it really isn't worth all that money that they spent on you, not thinking about the money they could have had to spend if they hadn't hired as good of an attorney. They figure it could have been done just as well because you made it look so easy. We all know that it wasn't as easy as you made it look. I have also found that some insurance companies who provide malpractice insurance to their clients have clauses that prohibit or strongly discourage law firms they represent from sending clients to court on collection purposes. The reason is that those clients are more likely to simply file a malpractice lawsuit to get out of paying those fees, which is a good reason why it's important to make sure you get your bills out on time. So what are some strategies that we can use with that? The firms that I find that are most successful in getting bills out the door are firms that set a schedule and keep to it. Okay? Many of the local firms here in town are able to get their bills out the door within 5 business days of when they end their billing. Now, for some, that's getting their bills out by the 5th business day of the month. For others, they end their business on the 25th of the month, and then they get their bills out the door by the last business day of the month. So both of those are really good strategies. So how do they do this? They have a designated time when time must be entered. Several of my clients, the time is required to be entered by 10 a.m. the next day. Of course, if you don't micromanage, you may not know that, but they might check on a weekly or monthly basis to get those bills out. If you check that time on 10 a.m. of the first business day of the month, you can then hand out that recap of hours report, which we saw a couple slides back, and then the attorneys can make sure that they have that time in by noon. Then you run those bills, those pre-bills. Some will call them a pro forma, some will call them a draft. Those are run and handed out right away. So if you have those by noon on the first business day of the month, you can give the attorneys 24 hours to get that item reviewed and then handed back so that somebody can correct those bills and make any adjustments that are needed to be made. And then you can get those bills out the door in a very short time. Just setting the deadlines may not be enough, however. Getting a solid schedule to work requires administration to be a part of this process. If you don't have buy-in by the top individuals in the firm, it's never going to work. You have to have consequences in place as well, or those deadlines don't work. Some of the things that I've seen successful firms do is to have fines to make sure the bills go out. And that fine money goes into a fund for something fun for the staff rather than just rolling back into partner bonuses. Otherwise, for partners, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to have the fines because they know they'll get it back eventually. Other firms simply keep to the deadlines, and if your time's not in, it doesn't get on the client's bill, and then that attorney doesn't get paid for their work. In addition to setting a schedule, you have to make staff aware of the schedule you create, and you can use the software tools that are available to make this job easier. One example that you can see here is to use tools in Practice Master to schedule deadlines. Here you see an example of Practice Master's calendar plan template, which I created just so you could see an example here. And this allows you to calculate deadlines around the holidays and weekends because it's working on the number of business days from an individual item. So you can simply run that and put the information in the calendar so that the entire staff knows when the work has to be done. They know, the time has to be entered by the end of the day. They know the time has to be entered by 10 a.m. They know when the pre-bills are going to be printed, when they're going to be reviewed, when the corrections have to be made. So all of that information is in there. And you can also have alarms pop up so that they get a notification to remind them in case they forget. When that information is on the calendar for everyone to see, the entire staff can work towards meeting the deadlines that you set. Another way to make it easy to get those bills out the door is to ensure that the billing staff has their own tools to make their job easier. For example, one tool that I love in tabs 3 is the ability to run those reports together in suites. I can define criteria for several different statement runs and reports, and then I run all of that at one time. So if I have different criteria for different attorneys, I can simply save a definition, and then I just have one click to run all those reports to get those out the door. Just select that group I need to run, set them to print, and then go to lunch and come back, pick them up, and hand them out. Additionally, if a billing person needs to take time off on the day you typically run pre-bills or the day you run finals, instead of having a long list of instructions to help somebody get through that, it's a simple matter of click on the report suite list, select your report suite, hit OK, select your printing options, and you're off to go. Not quite one button, but not very many to click at all. Speaking of getting those bills out the door, once the review is complete and corrections are made, one of the easiest ways to get them out fast is to email your statements. In tabs 3, clients can be configured to receive bills by mail, email, or both. You simply run the statements as normal and then go to the email statements program, review them, and press send. You're going to send those on their way, and they'll be out the door. It can take seconds to press send. One of my clients, her name is Rachel, she went from 2 days to get hundreds of bills out the door to getting all those bills out in less than an hour because that firm simply switched all of their clients to email statements. Now, not everybody can do that because not every client can take those, but you can get those bills out the door very fast. Some of you may want a little bit more interaction, and that's fine. If you prefer a little individual control, you can pull up each statement, each email, one at a time, and verify the information, and then simply click the send button on that email. I had a client who was reluctant to switch to email bills a few years ago. In the end, she was very happy that she did so. According to Tracy, the payments come in faster, but so do the questions. However, since it's fresher in our minds, it's easier to respond to them right away. They also found that they were saving hundreds of dollars on postage and printing costs just related to their bills because you don't have to waste any paper, and especially if you print on nice letterhead. You don't have to waste an envelope. You can either put a return address on that envelope, or you can get your envelope specially printed with the return address on that. That costs more. And then, of course, postage, it's nearly 50 cents to send an individual letter each day. So if you send 100 bills out, that's 50 bucks right there. One of the things I like about the individual settings in the email is I can also optionally pull in the information from the client's bill so that they know what to pay. And this happens automatically. You simply set up your design, your format, and it's going to pull that information in. As someone who does much of my own banking online, if I can go in and I can take this amount that I have to pay and just highlight that, quickly select it, and paste it into my bill pay program, it's a lot easier for me to go ahead and get that payment and just get that scheduled as soon as I get that email bill in. Finally, the last mistake we want to talk about today is attorneys avoiding their accounts receivables. AR happens. Even when you can get the bills out right out the door, there's going to be clients that are going to put off paying as long as possible. Whether it's due to a temporary shortage of funds or simply an oversight on the part of the client, there are ways that we can reduce the pain of AR. Billing your clients in advance is one way to avoid accounts receivable, especially if you practice a form of law where clients can become more reluctant after the end of the case and individual deadlines are not critical, such as a divorce. Having the money up front is a good indication that they're capable of paying for your services. Of course, you want to ensure that the money you receive is properly managed in your IOLTA account. Good software like tabs 3 Trust Accounting will track individual account balances as well as the balance of your combined IOLTA account so that you don't have to worry about commingling of funds. Even better, you have the ability to configure tabs 3 Trust Accounting to automatically create a transaction for a payment to a firm when the client's bill is run. You can show your client the amount that you're transferring, and if your statement allows, you can quickly combine these transactions into one entry that matches the amount that you transfer when you call the bank. I know not every state allows you to transfer those funds electronically, but if you can do that, we can make one combination. We can make it very easy to get that information transferred and to get those payments made, along with notifying your clients how much money is in that account so they know where they sit. When you choose to accept retainers, tracking those retainers is critical to the success of your firm. Each firm should be able to identify the same number in 3 different ways. We call this a 3-way reconciliation. The checkbook or check register balance is the balance of where your account would be today if everything cleared based on what you have on the individual line in your checking ledger, whatever checkbook, whatever you're tracking that in. The adjusted account balance is the balance from your last reconciliation plus any outstanding items. Many banks will print a form on the back of the statement you get each month to help you calculate this, and you should reconcile every month. Of course, this total should match the total of your client trust ledger balances. That's the total of the balances from each matter that has money in your account. This is something that's unique to trust accounting, and if you do hire staff from outside the legal industry, you may need to teach them just how critical this is because they don't recognize that need. So if you can't account for who owns that money in the account, you could be unintentionally commingling funds, and of course no one wants to see that. You could also receive a reprimand in the event that you get audited and you can't determine how all that money adds up, and you may even be required to go back and redo all your reconciliation for months and even years to get back to a point where you can figure out who owns the money in that account. If your clients don't pay in advance, you will want to track how much they owe you and follow up on those past due amounts. Before I started working with TABS 3 in 1994, I used to work for a collection company. Identifying clients who had past due amounts and following up with them is critical to collecting. And the more delinquent a client gets, the more you need to follow up on them. One of my favorite ways of tracking past due amounts in TABS 3 is the collections report. The settings that you see above are what I like to use on a report I call seriously delinquent accounts. Clients who have balances that are more than 4 months old and have not made a payment in the last 3 months. If they aren't paying and you have the ability to stop doing work without causing a loss for your client and following all your board regulations, then you should no longer be working for those clients. You should stop that work at least until they make a payment. So let's take an opportunity real quick here to go out to the software and just show you this report. So here on the reports, I have my AR reports and then my collections report, and I actually have it already loaded here. So we'll just load that up. And all I need to do is put in my ranges, and I actually have a definition where I can highlight and select the seriously delinquent accounts, and then click OK and run my report, and I'm just going to preview it so you can see it. And now I can see all kinds of information about the client. I can see that I wrote off the finance charge. I can see the payments that were received. I can see the last statements that are outstanding. Obviously, you can see my sample data thinks it's sometime in the future. I can see all kinds of contact information about my client. I love having that. As a collector, that was important. Having their phone numbers, knowing who I need to talk to, having their email address. Having all this information handy makes me able to talk intelligently when I'm talking to the client about their past due amount. Another favorite thing is I can click right here, go to the client's billing preferences, put in a note, and then put in a comment about the call. Using those macros, I can put that information in there, and here I have now a good history about this information, and I can save that. And then at the end of the day, I simply refresh my report, and I can see my entire call history on these matters. So if I have an attorney that's overseeing this information, they can see what collection efforts I have made to collect on these particular clients' bills. Of course, once you get your client on the phone to discuss their past due amounts, you want to make it easy for your clients to pay. When working with a client on a delinquent account, accepting credit cards or checks by phone is one of the easiest things you can do. Simply get that information you need while you're talking to the client. When entering a payment into tabs 3, you can be prompted to automatically enter credit card information, use a card reader to collect that information, or even enter check information to accept a check by phone. As soon as you press submit, the information is set to ProPay and a response is returned, letting you know that the payment was accepted. Sign up for a ProPay account takes just a couple minutes, and you aren't charged unless you accept a credit card. So you can be ready to take that card when your client requests it or when you're following up on that client's outstanding bill. Tabs 3 Trust Accounting also has the ability to accept credit card payments directly to your IOLTA account so that even retainer payments are easy. Money from your client can be deposited to your IOLTA account, and the costs associated with credit cards, including chargebacks, can be taken from your firm's operating account. This can ensure that you're not putting your client trust money at risk for a chargeback or other issue. So there you have it, how you can avoid the most common mistakes that attorneys make. So let's review. If your problem is inaccurate timekeeping, you can enter your time as you work. An easy way to do that is to use a timer. Additionally, you can use software tools like macros to make your data entry easier. You can use convert to fees so you don't have to duplicate effort, and tabs 3 Connect to enter your work as you're out of the office. If you need to find missing time, you can do that using reports in your software, like the Recap of Hours report in tabs 3. View your calendar to review what you did, and use tools like the visual timer display in Practice Master or products like iTimekeeper Chrometa to help track how you spend your day. To help with on-time invoicing, you want to make sure you set a schedule and be sure to put that into the firm's calendar. Use tools like report suites to make running pre-bills easier and get those bills out the door fast by emailing those bills so that those payments can come in faster. And finally, to manage your accounts receivable, you can prevent clients from getting behind in the first place by using a retainer. For clients that do get behind, be sure to regularly track your accounts receivable using efficient reports, and don't forget to track those collection calls. And finally, when you have the client on the phone, make getting paid easier by accepting credit cards.